Podcasting from Astrolab Studios, this is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast where we revisit sci-fi, fantasy, and just plain weird shows that have faded from the collective consciousness and didn't quite make the impact that they intended. This week, Tekwar, episodes 1 and 2.
Should I go 2 for 2?
Come on, partner.
What are you doing?
Boxing up the increase in ozone like a contact post would make pass in a booby trap.
I wouldn't trust that thing as far as I can. Throw it.
So much for waking up the neighbors.
All right, Jordan. So this is the first podcast of Continuum Drag. So before we get into Tekwar, do you want to just quickly lay out what this is exactly?
Yeah, so the basic idea is a bunch of different, science fiction or fantasy or horror or anything like that. Basically shows that didn't quite make it for whatever reason, but were weird and unique in their own way, and we'll kind of go through them and see if they were maybe unjustly discarded, or if they're really as bad as they somewhat seem at the first appearance, like Tekwar.
Like Tekwar.
Like Tekwar, which looks bad and is bad.
I think the rule for the show is going to be anything like Stargate and below.
Stargate's the high point.
Stargate is like the baseline. Like it had 3 spin-offs? That's enough. It's like a big enough fan base. Anything like lower than that.
I think
season.
I think once it justifies some sort of erotic fiction, it's probably more successful than most of the things that we'll be watching. Well, you never know. There might be some erotic fiction.
And yeah, I think those are the only rules so far.
So you want to get into it? Want to start going into this show?
Sure. Let's talk Tech Wars.
Okay, so I don't know what we had talked about this before about which shows to do, and we kind of talked about Tekwar, and I think probably you know more than I did, and I went in pretty blind on this. I can tell you the thoughts I had going in, and all I really knew about it. And my only memory of Tekwar was seeing books in a bookstore that were, clearly had William Shatner's face on them, which immediately was, I remember, funny at that time to me, being, an early teen and just wanting to make fun of everything. And there was just a real sad sense of desperation when I saw these books of cashing in on whatever fame he had. And it's like, oh, he's an author now. He's writing these Tekwar books. So that's honestly as far as I think there's a vague idea that there was, I think there's a video game maybe, and maybe something else, but all I knew was there was a TV show and a series of books, and really they were made just on the basis of people knowing that William Shatner was Captain Kirk at some point in his life. But other than that, my only memory is the show may or may not have funny suit jackets. That's all I know. That was it going in. So I don't know, but you knew a little more, right?
I don't know about a lot more than that. I probably saw an episode at some point. I feel like it was just on TV on Sunday afternoons when I was 12 years old. But I have no real memory of it. Like the things I know for sure going into a Tekwar was William Shatner. I thought it was about some sort of VR that was also a drug.
See, I thought it was. I actually thought it was some sort of weird militaristic, science fiction. It wasn't. I wasn't even sure if it was set in the future, just maybe like an alternate reality.
No, definitely some sort of future drug. That's what it's the war on drugs in the future. All right, so do you know when it came out? It's season 1 of Tekwar.
I think it was 94, right?
Yeah, it ran 94, December 94 in Canada, January 95 in the US, to February 96.
Wait, Canada had it a year before the States?
We got it 2 days before Christmas. It was our Christmas
It was a Christmas present, right?
Exactly. So we had it just before then, but it kind of ran for that 1 year, only that one season. But there were 4 TV movies before the first season, which makes sense having watched the first 2 episodes because there's a lot of backstory that is not explained.
I mean, yeah, we can get more into that, but I guess I hadn't even realized there's very, very little world building or explanation of what is happening or why it is happening. And it's just sort of like, "Eh, you guys will get it, but it's just sort of evocative of nothing. Um, have you ever seen any of those TV movies?
No. Anyway, I did a little bit of looking into it since I wanted to kind of situate us as to like what was going on in 1995 while Tech Wars was on TV. And it was a pretty bad year.
I can tell you what was happening. I'll first thing I know it's on your list, 1995. I can tell you it was O.J. Simpson. That's got to be that was all 95 was.
100% October,
Yeah.
O.J. Simpson was found guilty.
Yeah. I actually specifically remember them announcing it, announcing the verdict over the PA system at school. How weird is that? It was such a big story that at school they
No.
announced that he was innocent.
Someone walked into our science class and like announced it, and then the teacher couldn't take it and had to leave the room. And I
Because she
didn't
was so upset?
he was I don't know,
Oh, he was
I don't know
upset.
what his problem. I wasn't following along. I was a child and I was like, people really something's going on with this OJ thing. I don't know what it was. But yeah, OJ was found not guilty.
Mhm.
It was a bad year. Unabomber Manifesto was published. There was both the Tokyo subway gas attacks and the Oklahoma City bombing that year.
Right.
Oh, and Quebec failed to get independence that year.
Yeah, they lost with 49.5%.
That was all that year. And Toy Story, the first computer animated film, came out that year. So think about the fact that Toy Story came out the same year that the effects in this movie or this TV show
Right.
were being like put together.
I mean, we can talk about that after, but that is something that jumps out right away. Is the special effects on this show look like they're at least 5 or 6 years old by the time it's airing. Anyways, it looks bad.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess think about those are the events going on with Tekwar going on. I don't think they really acknowledge anything that's happening in the world around them while they're making the show, but it's funny to think that this is what they were thinking about doing. The future was going to be like, well, like it was a really bad year for humanity.
Right.
All right.
Great year for O.J. Simpson, though.
Good. Yeah, very good year for him. All right, you want to get into episode 1, Sellout. What is the first episode about? Tell me what you think the first episode is about.
The plot is Marty Dollar or whatever that guy's. Is it Marty Dollar?
Marty Dollar, yeah.
Marty
you're right.
Dollar is maybe a philanthropist, or may also be, I don't know, just like a used car salesman type person, and he may or may not be creating a tech drug. That's
Yeah.
the basic.
I mean, yeah. Basically, a prostitute is killed. Is she a prostitute? She doesn't seem to touch him at all. Like she just uses technology.
It's the future. You don't need.
You
to.
don't need to touch anyone. But not before she can get a message to the show's hero. Did you catch his name?
You know what's funny? 2 episodes in, I have no idea what his name is.
His name is Jake Cardigan.
Oh, Cardigan. That's right.
Jake
Cardigan's funny.
Cardigan. It's
Jake
a great
Cardigan,
name. Doesn't wear a cardigan though.
No, he wears oversized leather jacket that looks terrible on him.
She calls Cardigan, leaves him a message, and says, "I've got some important information for you." Even though he's not a cop anymore. He was a cop. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
At some point, it comes up that he was a cop, but he also is on parole and was in a freezer at some point. There's a lot of.
I didn't catch any of that.
information
I'll be
going
honest.
on.
I probably glazed over. I glazed over really quick, maybe 30 seconds, and I was like, "Oh, I wasn't paying attention."
Well, him and his partner Sid end up going to the prostitute's house, trying to find out what happened to her.
Is Sid's his partner, right?
Sid is his partner.
Right.
They show up, and apparently Sid's character is all about technology because he's got his pod with him.
That's the best. I think the best thing of the 2 episodes is his smell technology, right?
Yeah.
That's the best thing.
His portable olfactory device. That's what they call it.
Yeah, I think that's the best technology they have, which is it doesn't seem like it would have been worth to make, even for solving crimes. Like the smell is not. It's the least of the senses I think that is important, but
I mean, even in the episode, they don't seem to do much with it.
I think it's just to give that guy something to do. You know?
Yeah.
Give him some lines.
So they get the case. They're going to find out what happened to this woman they used to know. We cut back to Jake's apartment where this is very unclear to me. He refers to that woman both as his wife and his girlfriend at
Oh, really?
varying times in the show. I couldn't quite sort out who she was, but either his wife or his girlfriend has come home from work and is watching a home shopping channel, which is also apparently the most popular television show on TV with the villain, Marty Dollar.
It kind of reminded me of a RoboCop knockoff of the guy who says, "I'd buy that for $1." Every time he was doing it, I was like, "Oh, come on, this is not as good as RoboCop." Also, he also wore terrible clothes. He actually reminded me. The note I wrote was he looks like a wrestler from the early '90s. like a villain wrestler.
It's that
He's
mullet.
got
It's
kind
got
of the
that
mullet. He's kind of a little squat, and he looks like he just would be, like, I love taxes or something like that, just to get the audience to boo him.
That
That sort of
actor
thing.
was great though. He was like
He was probably one of the better things in the show.
his whole home shopping network is really actually kind of more of a precursor to Amazon. Like I think he as a villain is basically the creator of Amazon because she's trying on clothes with like an AR interface. They're like projecting onto her
Yeah.
body. She's just mail ordering them in. She's just buying them with credit. It is all kind of got that home shopping channel, but really more of an Amazon vibe. Like you can just buy anything you want. So for the villain is basically the creator of Amazon. Not only are they shopping basically on Amazon, he's selling his super music machine, which is just an Apple Watch with music on it.
Yeah. And later on, and it's a spoiler for the second episode, they also have a thing. What do they call it? Wrist fits, which was just a Fitbit.
Yeah, the
I have to say-
technology in this is very good.
Yeah.
Even in that scene where she's at her house, someone calls, and their like video phones just look like an iPad. Like they've got the camera on the top, and they're just sort of mounted iPads.
So that's a one in the win column for Tekwar is the realism of the technology that they have.
I think Tekwar's technology is remarkably on point for what actually is happening. So what it turns out is Marty Dollar's trying to get Cardigan's wife's attention because he wants to give her a job. Like she orders a dress.
It also doesn't make any sense.
No.
It's the longest way to go around to unfurl his plan. He gives her a dress that he knows she's going to want to get so that he can come over and personally deliver it to her. And then when he's there, he's like, by the way, do you want a job because you apparently are a genius that I need?
That's the whole plot. He hires her immediately to come to his I don't know what, like he runs a home shopping network, but he also is a scientist with a laboratory in it, and he needs her to help him fight tech.
Yeah, he said he wants to eradicate tech addiction, which the weird thing about that is they haven't, at least to this point, from what I remember, never really mentioned what that is or what it looks like, unless the beginning is what that was. The guy who may or may not be in a brothel. Was that him
What do you think tech was based on what you saw?
Well, I guess it was just the sticking that weird visor thing on. That seemed to be what I thought it was. I didn't see like any like people laying in an alley with, ones and zeros on their arm or something.
No, I think you're right. It's just virtual reality that people are watching. But as we see, when he asks her to create the substance that people are addicted to in tech, there's a chemical formula that people somehow absorb from the virtual reality.
Yeah, I didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
That's either that I was bored and didn't pay attention, or it just wasn't that clear. It's one or the other, maybe a little bit of both.
Well, that's exactly why she's brought in, because he wants her to distill down, what is it called? Diphtherian? It's some sort of chemical that somehow gets dispersed via the VR that causes people to overdose on tech.
Right.
So they are addicted to virtual reality. That's what's not clear is how this chemical transitions between these two things. Like I couldn't work it out. In my head.
That's not the biggest problem. There's so many things they drop in. Like it's sort of an example of a lot of decisions made without, I think, any thought behind it. And it's the same thing like you're talking about the whole thing of addiction. It's like, they get addiction to technology. How? I don't know, reasons. Because there's a chemical. That's why. Let's move on. Let's get back to this fast-paced action, So that's, I think, one thing that kind of starts ringing through it, and at least in the first two episodes, that I don't think a lot of decisions were made other than technology is bad, and look what happens in the future. Although we don't really see much other than a smell machine, and a Fitbit.
All right. Well, Cardigan's wife is like getting this job and like creating this chemical that is distilled from VR. We kind of get a chance to go to where Cardigan works. Do you know where he works? Do you understand where he works?
Well, again, at first, actually, I got through most of the first episode thinking that they were police officers, and that was just a futuristic police department, which I should say was clearly shot in Toronto, because I can just spot where it is downtown where they've shot this.
Shot at the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's right across, right. So my thought was that they were some sort of police officers. And then as episode 2 came along, I was like, and they're also they're not the military either. So I actually don't know what they are, but they sort of have an office where some sort of 1940s secretary works, who seemed to be in a different show entirely. The blonde woman. She was like, I got gumption.
She's the resident hacker. She was doing all the hacking.
Yeah, but there's like four different hackers in the show. Anyways, get to that later. But yes, you'd probably know more than me. I didn't understand. I thought they were police officers the whole time. That only every crime is tech related now.
No, they work at Cosmo Security for Shatner's character Boscom. That is what's happening there.
So his name is Boscom.
Calm.
I didn't. It reminds me more of Bosco, the old. It was a Seinfeld joke with chocolate, the chocolate sauce, Bosco. Anyway, Marty Dollar right off the pot. I said he looks like he got his suits from the Cork collection. It's like he got it from like leftover Deep Space Nine outfits. It's just a bad jacket. Also, I don't know if we could talk about, but the music is so bad in this show. It's distractingly bad. Like it's like stock porn music. It's just really and it blares out constantly as if to give you an emotion that it's not. The show's not sure what you're supposed to feel. It's just here's terrible music to change scenes. It's really really bad and dates it really badly too.
I like that the plot could not stick in your head, but that music.
Well, that's the problem with a lot of the show is that some of the elements are so bad that I get distracted from the actual things of like what is happening, where are they, who are they.
All right, I guess I'm gonna make this long story short. I guess since you weren't paying attention to the plot at all,
No, you can keep going.
Sid and Jake track down the client of the prostitute. He's gone missing. They figure out he worked for Marty Dollar. Now Jake's really like freaking out that his girlfriend's working there now. They start digging in further and they know he's up to no good. Of course, this all comes to a head while he's launching his super music machine.
Oh, well that's the part that's kind of funny in terms of the plot is that you know from the beginning that this guy's a bad guy because they just, they show that the whole way. You just know because otherwise there's no plot to the episode. But I like that the night that he's releasing his super music machine, they also have to do tests in their secret lab downstairs. And I thought you couldn't do these tests at any other time. It just seemed incredibly convenient for them to be doing one because they had that guy and they were like injecting him with music or something downstairs. And I thought, just guys like shouldn't you just be like pouring champagne and stuff upstairs?
Yeah, they're testing how the super music machine works, which that's the whole plot point is they need her to synthesize
Right.
the thing because somehow when he launches the super music machine, which is just Tidal, like it's just iTunes, it's a music subscription service that's
Yeah.
going to go live. That music subscription service is also going to pump this tech chemical into all the users. And so, yes, they're throwing a party while they're testing the device downstairs. Did you catch what that guy's music of choice was?
Yes, it was Metal Country.
Yes, Metal Country was
Yeah.
his choice.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was weird because it just seemed like I didn't know if that was supposed to be like a genre in the future or if it was just the person who wrote that just had a vague knowledge of music and was like those are two words I've heard of before.
I think it was this is a future music. Although whatever music they actually played underneath that was neither country nor metal.
No, that's true. Although I would like to hear what actual Metal Country would sound like.
It's out there somewhere, I'm sure.
Oh, I should point out that his wife and or girlfriend, whoever she is, at when obviously at that point where she discovers the plot, she's like, "Oh, I should have known." And I was like, "But you didn't give any second thought to that before you took the job and did all this stuff. You know all the biology and chemistry behind what you're doing, and only until after your husband comes by and goes, he's a bad guy." She goes, "Ugh, I should have known what I was doing was terrible."
Well,
She's clearly not that smart.
she was offered a guy offered her a job and she quit whatever she was doing beforehand to go do it almost immediately.
Yeah, being a scientist in the future is not a well-paying job because you'll take a job from the shopping network over doing your research. Apparently, also, does it make sense that Marty Dollar is trying to infect the whole world at the same time when he's known for giving tons of money to fight tech addiction? Doesn't that seem counterintuitive to what he's doing?
That's just not. He's just trying to. That's just his cover. I
That's
think
his smokescreen.
He's trying to get everyone addicted to it, so they have to buy his music subscription service.
Yeah, but they were saying he's a philanthropist.
It's true. He did cure leukemia.
Yeah, they mentioned that, right?
They
so it's
did
like
mention that.
so the point being, he cured leukemia as a way so that he could get people on his music service because that's a long way to go. I mean, I mean, I guess the ends justify the means when you've cured the world of leukemia.
Yeah, he couldn't make any money off leukemia, but
Right.
drug addiction he could. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. They're onto him for some reason. They break into his lab during the launch of this event. They discover the whole plan, and then they basically like try to arrest him. They're not police, but they're definitely trying to arrest him at his party.
Well, before that, just jumping back a little bit, I should mention there's one part with William Shatner which is so hilarious, but they have the scene where Cardigan's strategies pretend he's drunk, right? So that
Yes.
he can get into the lab and he has to pretend he's drunk. And then they have a scene where he gets in a fight with William Shatner's character who takes him down in one punch. And it just felt like Shatner was like, I'll get in a fight, but I got to be the best fight around. So you as an audience are supposed to, this guy who's got a body like a raccoon is what he looks like. Like he's just this doughy guy. It just can knock people down in one punch because he's Shatner. I know it was part of Cardigan's plan, but it just was like, guys, this looks bad. Shatner's not knocking anyone down.
Yeah, actually, it's really weird for the pilot. Very little Shatner in this pilot.
Very little.
You
I actually
think-
didn't think he was going to show up for a while.
You'd think they'd want to lay into him in the pilot of the season, but I guess at this point, I guess if there's been 4 TV movies, people are really into it.
Another cool technology, which is second to the smellometer, whatever it was called, is his partner gets to use like a face,
The morph mask.
the morph mat. That was pretty good, actually. I thought that was good.
There's some good technology. I wrote a bunch of it down. There's some fun.
What'd you think of the wave gun? I didn't understand
Wave gun? Oh yeah.
because they have actual bullets. So it's like a wave gun. I mean, I guess it's good if you had like police or whatever they are want non-lethal weapons, but it still seems pretty powerful. If it can knock glass off, if you shot someone with that, you'd probably injure some internal organs.
Well, there's bullet guns. There's some sort of dart gun at the beginning.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And then he has some sort of like force wave gun. It's like shooting.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Like
sound waves or
a
something.
sound wave. Yeah, it's really weird. I don't know what is going on with that, but it does seem to be his weapon of choice. Maybe it's just non-lethal.
Oh, and the thing with Marty, I actually thought when I was watching it, and maybe this is just looking at things from a more modern perspective, I actually thought Marty was going to be the villain through the course of the season, and it was going to take them longer to kind of prove that he was a bad guy. I didn't realize they were just going to wrap it up, and then also bring a guy who may or may not be like a Klingon with his forehead ironed, who just shows up and looks weird. Was he supposed to be an alien? Do you know who I'm talking about? That guy who's
Yeah,
like
that was really weird.
is he an alien?
No, he's the police.
Oh, he's the police.
Yes. Lieutenant.
But why does he look so weird?
They call him lieutenant, and he's apparently the police. But yes, he talks weird. He acts like a robot, and he's got a facial implant.
Oh, he has a facial implant.
I don't know what's going on there. I assume we'll get into it at some point in the series.
But he doesn't show up in episode 2. So I was just like, I guess that guy's done. They just brought a weird looking guy who he just looked weird, and then that was it.
No, that was definitely the police, because Marty Dollard called the police to like bring them in to help solve the crime of the dead prostitute, to prove he wasn't guilty. But it was unclear. He was making some sort of corporate arrest or something.
Right. Or was it implying that he has the sort of police in his pocket?
I think that's the implication, really. The only people he doesn't have in his pocket are Cosmo Security.
So do you think Marty's going to make another appearance later in the show?
I hope so. I had the same thought
You
you
hope so.
did. I thought he was going to be the overall bad. He was so
Right.
good. He was
Right.
so good.
The acting was, I mean, not that they had a lot to work with, but he was probably the standout actor, I thought.
Yeah, he did good. I like Jake. I like Jake Cardigan.
Did you? I didn't like
He's
Jake
got
Cardigan.
a lot going for
Jake
him.
Cardigan reminded me of someone who thinks he's cool by, like, he was cool like Mitch Buchanan in Baywatch was cool. Like, not very cool. Like, he just looks like he thinks he's cool. Like, oh, I'm wearing a leather jacket. My hair's all coiffed. It's like, you're not look cool at all, man.
He did it for me. He was
Did
great.
he did it for you.
It was great. All right, let's get back to this climax here. So they uncover his plan to drug all of society with some sort of music device subscription service. Doesn't make any sense. And they're going to take him down, but somehow he's captured Cardigan's girlfriend, even though we just saw her.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was good.
And he's going to kill her by driving
A car over top her.
a car from the 60s for some reason.
Yeah, it was clearly whatever they had around on the lot. There's a lot of, clearly it was what was around us at the time, because in the second episode, and we could talk about that more after, of course, but there's a scene where they go and like talk to some sort of like scavenger pawn shop guy, and it clearly is just the back studio where they're keeping all their gear. That, and it's just, there's a lot of that in the car. I felt like that. I mean, I don't think this is a show where there's sort of weird future where people are driving old cars or old technology or stuff. I think it was just like, I don't know, we have a car around. Wouldn't it be cool if it drove over her?
It was remote controlled, that car, though. That was the future
It was a
required.
remote control.
It was remote
That's
control.
true.
But the big twist is earlier in the episode, the girlfriend kicked her shoes off,
Yeah.
and when he looks down, her shoes are on. She's just a hologram, so he doesn't do anything to save her.
Yeah, I like that. He was just like, I'm not saving it. Which, to be fair, it is a hologram, right?
Yeah, he figured it out. He figured out the big plot.
And the question with holograms, though, if they're so realistic, shouldn't they have had her like actually die when they ran over her as opposed to disappear? Like, shouldn't the person who programmed that thing also programmed like the horrible death of the body, to really sell it to the person they're trying to fool?
That's good. You should write for this show. You should write for the Tech Wars reboot.
Yeah, it's in my fan fiction.
And that all just leads into Jay Cardigan fighting him in the ultimate climax of the show in the fog fight. For some reason, a fog machine gets turned on, the entire place gets fogged out, and they have like a great, awful fist fight.
Well, it's trying to have that sort of it's a match because Cardigan's such a man's man, and the other guy couldn't be in a real fight with him. But now the odds are they're evened out a little bit because there's a little bit of smoke around.
It's a great fight. He like wheels the stage light at him. He
Yeah.
just sort of pushes it
again,
gently in his way.
just seemed like stuff they have on set.
Great fight. I love the fog fight. And it kind of just wraps up with him getting hit by the car and then, I guess, making arrests. It's not clear what happens to anyone at the end of the episode.
Well, again, I guess. And what did you say they were again? What is the organization?
Cosmo Security.
So, do you think Cosmo Security can arrest people?
It does not appear that way.
Okay, so they're just security guards. It's very weird.
It's very weird, but they defeat the bad guy.
Yeah,
and they're like, "Well, there he is. We got him." And I'm like,
the
I
job
don't know
well
what
done.
happens now.
Yeah, there's an overall issue with not caring through the whole episode. Just as a normal TV viewer, there wasn't a real arc to things, and it was just like, well, why do I care? Which I think is going to be pretty indicative of the show as a whole, of these sort of standalone episodes where you don't really care. There's no real stakes. Nothing is going to change ever.
Yeah, I mean, definitely everything goes back to the way it was by the end of the episode. Which let's get in to episode 2 then.
They were hopelessly outnumbered and outgunned, and nobody questioned the order. By the time I got there, the assault had begun. I never saw so many die so fast. It was wholesale execution.
For all the stuff that's going on in episode 1 that I was trying to follow along, nothing happened in episode 2.
Yeah, I actually weirdly liked the first episode better than I liked the second episode. Even though I think on paper, episode 2 looked like it was a better. I thought it was an interesting plot, but it was like everything just didn't work. From, sad to say, the actress they chose to just the plot there's so many plot holes, it doesn't make sense at all. And like you just see everything from moment 1 how it's gonna go. I wrote a note right off the bat that, well, I guess she's gonna die at the end of the episode. Like, as soon as she was introduced, it's like, well, that character is not gonna be a character. Oh, why don't we go through a couple things I noticed right off the bat?
In the opening at the the tobacco shop, I believe they call it Bacco.
The first thing I said was nicotine is outlawed. That's a weird thing in the world, but for some reason,
I don't know if was nicotine outlawed or was it just like
no, they mentioned
cigarettes?
No, they mentioned nicotine itself is outlawed. Again, they're like, "Ooh, you're smoking? Like, what a rebel."
Well, and he like was buying a vintage cigarette. I don't think that's how cigarettes work. I don't think there's vintage cigarettes.
Yeah, I don't know if they age well.
He gets in a fight at the vintage cigarette place. A bunch of guys dressed as pirates with joy buzzers on their hands.
Yeah, I wrote a group of dandies is how I described them. They were wearing, my memory now is they were wearing like some sort of cravat, and they did not seem like street toughs at all.
And this totally unrelated scene to the rest of the episode basically gets Cardigan to meet a former soldier from the Brazilian Wars.
Yeah, that was weird. They keep mentioning the Brazilian Wars, but it wasn't clear. Was this a war that happened, like Brazilian Civil War? Was this something that the United States was involved in?
Shatner was in it. Clearly, Americans were involved in it.
They're involved in it, but still could be a civil war. You know what I mean?
It sounded much more like there was American soldiers in Brazil. But she's a former soldier from there. she looks younger than she should because I guess she should be as old as Shatner, but she had as it was referred to, a butte job,
Yeah.
which is some sort of plastic surgery.
And I thought right from the beginning, I should say, there's no mention of his wife and or girlfriend in the second episode at all. And he's I felt clearly hitting on her in the beginning. And I was like, is his wife okay with this? But then, because she's not even in the episode. But then I guess it's not. That's just his quote unquote charming way, is to kind of be this kind of creepy guy who I felt like was hitting on her right off the bat.
Yeah, I think he's just real friendly to everybody. A real friendly guy.
He's a rogue.
He's a real friendly guy. He feels he feels something for her. I think it's closer to like helping, but because his brother died
Right.
in the war.
Also, there's a point where when they're having the conversation and she sees a scar and he reaches over and starts touching her scar, which I thought was really weird of him. And I was like, who just reaches over and goes, "Oh, you got a scar? Let me touch it." I think you always ask before you touch someone's scar.
I totally missed that. That's amazing.
And that took place in like a what looked like a futuristic 1950s diner.
Yeah, they go to that 50s diner a couple times in this episode. Yeah. Did you notice though? He talks about his dead brother who also died in the Brazilian War.
Yeah.
And he mentions he named his son
I did mention
after his brother. And I was like, I can't even tell if you have a girlfriend or a wife, but there was no son in that first episode.
Yeah, I think they probably wrote a bunch of these. Just different people wrote them without really consulting each other, because I'm pretty sure the way it was intended was the first episode he's married. This episode he's not married, but he has a son. But which it doesn't really matter because we don't ever see him. So it was a weird thing to even mention.
It was very strange. He gets her a job at Cosmo.
Yeah, because she gets what I wrote was she gets recruited like Will Smith got recruited in Men in Black. You're pretty good, and they just bring him in. I'm like, this is the training process for bringing the person in, and then she had to go through that special effects thing where she showed how good she could shoot guys in costumes and stuff, and that training sequence seemed to last an eternity.
That was a long training sequence.
Yeah.
That is only, it finally ends. There apparently was supposed to be more, but they say, oh, you're too good to do any more training.
Yeah, but the implication that they have is that because of the war, these veterans don't really have many opportunities,
Yeah.
and so that's why she's jumping at the chance to do it, because I guess she can't get a job
like a
because
Vietnam
she
vet.
has the stain of
Yeah.
the Brazil War
Of
on
the
her.
Brazilian War. Well, and she was the Battle of San Marco they keep talking
That's
about.
right.
Although he kept pronouncing it Sal Marco. Carter kept pronouncing it like Sal Marco. I couldn't tell what it was supposed to be.
It's his Brazilian accent.
However, once she's recruited, you quickly get a cutaway to realize she's some sort of sleeper agent who's being like controlled by an old general to kill people who are responsible for the Battle of San Marco. It's just this like
You're right. It's
a born identity kind of.
yeah. That's the thing. Thing is, she knew she had to keep assassinating people. So why did she even bother taking the job? She just thought they would never call her again. That clearly was still happening.
No, I don't know. She just wanted a job.
She's like, I just want to be a normal person and stalk tech crime, which, by the way, they don't do once in this episode.
No, it turns out like that's the only thing that relates back to the start of the episode is they're trying to find those joy buzzers that they're what do they call them? Outlawed concealable shockers, which is the only point which is where the two plots dovetail because you find out, oh, the person who's making them is also the general who's controlling her
Right.
to do these
Right.
assassinations. So he's apparently a general who also runs a large corporate military like industrial complex.
And she also has a brother who may have some sort of, I don't know how to say this, might have some sort of,
I don't think it was her brother.
wasn't it? I thought it was her brother. Well, he has some sort of mental
They
deficiency
meet
now
another.
because of
They
the
meet
war.
another soldier who.
And he should have been played by Henry Thomas. You know Henry Thomas?
No.
He played Elliot in E.T. Yeah, that's who should have played the part. But I guess he wasn't available. Anyways, I watched. I was like, that's who should be playing this part because he kind of looked like him, except he was like Henry Thomas's stand-in.
Well, yeah. I mean, he is. What's revealed is that she's some sort of like black ops project who is like built from the ground up to be a soldier.
Right.
Like her whole body is metal, and he's the same thing.
That also didn't quite make sense because later on they say at one point that you find out that she has like she's being grafted and stuff with metal, and they're like she's pretty much invulnerable. But then I'm like, then why did that attack on San Marco go so badly? You can't kill any of these people. That attack should have went pretty well, right? If you send invulnerable machines down there, I think you're going to win that war.
They lost them all immediately.
They lost them all immediately. That's the implication that they all died before they even got to the battle, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's why the strangely slow soldier is there. Is when they came back, they had to like deprogram them, and all that was apparently was lobotomizing them.
Also, I love that they shot every time they did the scene where they went to see Matthew. It was shot at the windiest time of the year. That the audio is bad and everything is just blowing like crazy, and it's just like oh, well, we're just shooting out here outside. Sorry, it looks terrible. It sounds terrible, and poor Matthew should have been Henry Thomas.
Well, I like that Matthew. The only job for a veteran from this war is he picks up leaves.
Yeah,
His job is to hand pick up
leaves for some reason. In the future, they've figured out a smellogram thing that can like detect people's perfume and see if they caused a crime, but they can't figure out anything to pick up leaves.
That's why she wants that job at Cosmo. It's better than picking.
It's a better
leaves.
job, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, another plot point. So Shatner, what's his name? Cosmo? What's his name? Boscom. He knows who she is, as it's revealed in the end, that she's a soldier, but he has no problem bringing her into the organization, and not only that, promoting her. Did that not? It didn't make sense, right?
I couldn't tell if he knew her specific. Like he seemed to know of the massacre because he has a great line reading there, where he does a real Shatner line reading and like takes a long pause and says, "Wholesale execution."
Yeah.
But I don't think he actually had much idea of like what like he just knew she was a soldier, I think. And then like the general who she's being controlled by immediately tells her to kill Shatner.
Right. And by the way, when she tries to kill him, what is her like? So he goes, "You have to kill Shatner." And instead of she's in the organization, you think they could have just waited till like they're having a coffee or something and kill him. She immediately pulls out a gun and just starts walking towards him. I'm like, this is the worst strategy for an assassination ever.
Yeah, it seemed like before she was making plans, but yeah, she just kind of like as if being controlled by hypnosis.
Yeah,
she attacked him.
She got boned on that force field too. She didn't know about the technology that you can't. That immediately they just can put force fields around people, which by the way would be very useful later on. I'm sure they'll have that as a plot point later on that you can just put force fields around people at any time.
They just can't come at Shatner's own house. Like it's just
right.
not possible.
Right.
It's just not possible. Anyway, after she fails to kill Shatner, the government like scoops her up because they know she's some sort of rogue entity. She gets put in some sort of laser jail.
Yeah. Well, that was actually that was one of the few parts I liked. I liked that she broke out of jail by attacking the worst nurse of all time, who doesn't seem to care that she's this like super soldier from the future. He just walks in with a big needle being like, "I'm going to give you a needle now." Like clearly she's going to use that against you. Then she uses the laser to bounce off the metal inside of her arm to destroy the laser machine. I thought that was pretty good.
That was pretty good. She does burn a hole in her own flesh with the laser jail cell to reflect the laser off the metal in her bones.
Yeah.
To destroy her own cell.
It is a fault of the laser cell.
I mean, how many people have metal in their bones though?
That's true.
It's one in a
well,
one in a
actually,
million.
all of those super soldiers.
Oh, they're all dead though.
That's true. Because they're not that invulnerable.
She gets out, but not before Cardigan like explains her entire plot to her, like that she's being used by this like general to like kill the competition too. Like that's it. She's not avenging anyone. This general's using her to kill his corporate competition. I think that's the plot.
It didn't quite make sense, but also then, and how did Cardigan? He found her by going to that Minority Report girl, right? Who was like the second hacker in the episode. She was like going. How they were showing the technology was her. She was like swimming through technology. And she was eating chocolate bars for some reason. That was her character. She likes chocolate bars.
Yeah, that was really weird. I forgot they went to that other hacker.
Yeah, that's how he found her or something. It was the only reason to show like their cool special effects that looked really bad.
Yeah, I guess that's how they unraveled the whole thing is by going to hackers to do that. And like, I can't remember, he had a terrible line. He had to use hackers outside of the company because we don't want her to know that we're peeking up her skirt, referring to the.
Oh, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
Referring to the military or the like military cover-up woman who came to the office.
Yeah,
so weird.
And also, are we supposed to feel bad about these military people? Like, I guess that was the point, is that they're evil, but you don't see them do anything that's evil. I mean, if anything, old Shatner is the one who financed this thing. They're the ones who we should be hating. I don't think the military did anything.
No, yeah,
they were trying to stop the whole Brazil riots.
It was just like there's a weird anti-government sentiment to like these government officials who showed up to like try to clean up the mess. I wasn't sure why we were against the government.
Also, it didn't take much to turn her for a programmed assassin. All they had to do was Cardigan was like, "Hey,
he's lying to you.
He's lying to you," and she was like, "What?" And that was it. And I'm like, "Oh, if someone had just said that earlier to her, we could have just covered up this whole mess and just
It just required someone to have her think about what she was doing, critically for 2 seconds.
Yeah. And a couple still side notes. Dan Hedaya should be playing the general. I just was seeing other. I don't know if you remember who Dan Hedaya is. If you look him up. Anyways, he should be playing the general. And there was one part that I really, really liked. Maybe my favorite part of the episode was when she first gets a job and she has credits and she has money now and she thinks she's out. Like, she's like, I'm finally out. And she goes to go eat at that 1950s restaurant. And it has that great thing that they have in a lot of science fiction shows, which is, what do you do with food in the future? And she seems to be eating a bowl of vegetables and then what looks like a wasp's nest. And that's her meal. And she's so excited about eating it. And then the general's like, it's time to assassinate someone else. And she seems so disappointed because she just wanted to eat that weird futuristic food. And that was probably that was the high point of the show for me, was her eating those bowl of vegetables, which says a lot for the episode.
Well, that's fair. What was interesting is when she got that job, they're like, you're going to make 25 credits a day. And if you think back to the first episode, that dress that they bought was worth 1,200 credits. Like,
Right.
I don't understand. Like, if you're making, like, it seems like the economy of this world is like totally out of whack.
Yeah. What it is they didn't think about it.
That's fair.
Also unrelated, did you notice that the cars don't have back seats?
They're just Jeeps. They're like weird Jeeps.
They're weird Jeeps that they flow through these tubes that have advertisements, but they don't have back seats. I was like, I guess that's good. But what if you have a family? Where are you going to put them?
Anyway, I guess that gets us to the end where Cardigan drives his backseatless Jeep all the way to the like general's weird house mansion where the
She
super
she
soldier
kicks her way in.
kicks her way in and kills everyone.
Also, she again, she's not a very good assassin. They shoot her like a million times and she seems fine until the end of the episode where I was like, she's dying now? She got shot a bunch of times and she was only a little bit hurt. I guess it was residual injuries.
Yeah, they just said somewhere one of those bullets was just gonna have to kill her, I guess. And like, so she kills the general and she dies, and Cardigan feels really badly and like lifts her up and then walks her into a crowd of like journalists.
That was great. I like that he was like, you guys aren't going to stop. I guess the point is you're not going to stop the reporters from seeing her dead body. But has that ever happened in the history? Like, who decides if someone died, I'm going to now walk them and show the reporters the dead body? I'm like, oh, you're gross. And you have nothing to do with this, Cardigan.
It was
Just start getting involved.
It was another weird thing where I'm just like, I don't understand how Cosmo, like, they can't arrest anyone. Like, this is way outside of their jurisdiction.
There was also one weird thing. I don't know if you caught it. His partner, who by the way he's really getting shafted in this show. He doesn't get almost any dialogue. But at one point, him and Cardigan do this weird, not a high five, but they just lock their two fingers.
I did see that they like slap their
Wasn't
fingers
that
together.
weird?
They do that. He does that with the receptionist at some point too.
Now I wish there was more stuff like that where I was like, apparently in the future we've gone from like high fives to fist pumps to weird like little finger handshakes.
Now, you know what was the biggest missed opportunity in the episode though? The super soldier was set up as being at the battle that his brother died at.
Yeah.
That she's had extensive reconstructive surgery.
Yeah.
I thought for sure that was going to be his brother.
Oh, did you really?
I thought 100%.
No, there was no way in
was gonna
1994
be that was his brother.
No, I just was sure she was going to die from the beginning. That would actually would have been interesting.
They kept teasing it. Like there was all I like at some point when she was being like introduced to like Cosmo and the like computers reading off her stats. Like they make a very specific point of saying gender female, and I'm like, this is all.
You were giving way too much credit to the show.
Mislead to what's going to be his brother. Eventually, we're going to find out his brother's still alive. He's been recreated.
She also sucked as a recruit. They kept talking about how good she was. Like she sucked. And even that one day, she's like, "I learned a lot." I'm like, "What did you learn today?"
Well, she went on one mission and she was not very good at it.
And she harassed that poor guy who was just trying to sell them weapons.
I know. And then she was like arrested almost immediately afterward. Like she was barely there. She barely had a job.
And so again, the episode ends with nothing changing.
Everyone just goes back to their jobs.
Yeah.
So for the first episode, what out of 10 stars would you give the first episode of Tech Wars?
I would say episode 1, 6.5. 6.5.
All right, I'm going with a 7 for episode 1. Either it was weird, but I liked a lot of pieces of it.
I didn't like much of it.
Episode 2.
Episode 2, 5.
Oh wow, I would go 3. It was so boring.
Oh, is that much worse?
So boring.
I was bored, but not so much more so than the first episode.
The first one gave me a lot of hope, and the second one I'm like, let's just.
Really, you had a lot of hope in it.
I was like, I want to hear more about this Brazilian war, but all we're doing is.
I knew the first shot when that woman came and put that little headset on the guy. I was like, this is gonna be a long slog through these episodes. This is gonna be as bad as I thought, and it was. It was definitely as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
All right, great.
Maybe worse.
So we're pretty much agreed on the first episode, like 6.5 and 7, and more or less agreed on the second one. Although I'm giving it, what did I say, 3?
A 3 and a 5, yeah.
3 and a 5. All right. Not a great start to Tekwar. So thanks for listening to the first episode. If for some reason you want to talk to us about Tech Wars, we've got a Gmail account, continuumdrag@gmail.com, or you could like message us on Instagram or Twitter. Both those handles are Continuum Drag. And Jordan, is there anything else you want to say before this is over?
Not for these ones.
All right. Well, join us when we come back for the next 2 episodes of Tech War. Continuum Drag is recorded at Astrolab Studios in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Rick-Siedler. Produced by Jordan Delic and Luke Black. Special thanks to Adam Wheatner, Jeff Hanley, Emily Carter, and Dwayne Wright.